Welcome back to another quick review with P. I'm not on the phone anymore. I'm not outside. We are inside today. We are inside filming on the computer. Crazy how that works. Anyway, today we're talking about Ruin, book 3 in the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. And I had worries going into Ruin, specifically because of how I felt after Valor. Valor left me with a questioning taste in my mouth. I enjoyed Valor for the most part, but I can't help but feel like that book kind of put me in a bit of a slump. I wasn't enjoying reading it as much as I had thought I would. Um, and so going into Ruin, I had some of the same concerns that I did with Valor. Will I enjoy reading this? Will it hook me as much as Malice did? Will it, pay off on those other two books well? And the first half of the book, or at least the first 40% of the book, I kind of felt like it wasn't. I had a moment where I was like, man, I don't know if this is working out for me, if this is working for me. I want to see it through, but I don't know if it's working for me. And then you kind of hit the 40, 50% mark, and then we start getting into it. And I think from then on, the book just becomes amazing. Um, and I think the biggest reason why I love this book so much as compared to Malice and Valor, specifically Valor, is that it feels like there isn't as much going on. I think the biggest issue with Valor is Valor has so much happening at once. Like there will be chapters, like multiple chapters back to back to back with like only 3 to 4 pages, and I think the issue with that is that the book doesn't let you sit with a lot of the characters. So when something does happen to them, it doesn't feel as impactful. It doesn't feel like I should care. It's just like, oh yeah, this is a POV character who I've read for like who's had maybe like 40 pages, 40 50 pages of story content of screen time in a sense. That's dead now, and I should, and the book expects me to care about it because it's care about it, and that's just not the case. In Ruin, these characters get more time. Oftentimes, chapters are 10 pages or longer. Maybe there'll be chapters like at this chapter which are like 3 or 4 pages, but those are fine. Um, and I feel like I enjoyed the characters and I enjoyed the world and the story way more in this just because the book takes its time. Um, at the cost of being like 100 pages longer than Valor, but the book sits and takes its time, and I think it makes especially the ending of this book way more impactful, where all the revelations come out. Um, Corbin gets told of the truth behind the prophecy, which I think is actually a really interesting and fun plot twist. I think that's a really cool plot twist. Um, and then everything after that just goes horribly wrong, which leads to the emotional climax and the climax as a whole um, of the book with Storm, and it's so good. The ending of this book is so good. Um, yeah, man, I can't explain just how much I love this book more than um, Ruin. I mean, no, more than Valor and more than Malice. One of my big things I loved as well, aside from this where the story went and the characters themselves was also character relationships, and character development, and how these characters interacted with each other, how that played into the story. I love seeing that, and I love seeing how those relationships impact these characters. I think a prime example is Maquin and Fidel. I never figured out how to pronounce her name. Her name is weird. Those two characters, I think specifically, play off of each other really well. I think how that relationship develops is really nice, and I think where that goes, especially towards the end of the book, or towards the latter half of the book, they're not really involved in the ending all that much. Towards the latter half of the book, um, where we're confronting Lycos and Thayer and whatnot, is really good. I think that relationship adds to that entire plot line a ton. Same thing with Corbin and Coraline. I think those two characters and their relationship and how that evolves throughout the entirety of the book. And it's not much. They kind of sprinkle that in just a tiny bit throughout the book. But I think that works. I think that is a really good um, relationship dynamic, and I think it pays off well. And I'm very scared in Wrath to see what happens to Coraline, because the way that Coraline got a chapter at the end of the book, that's not fun. I don't like that implication. Because mere chapters before, I saw what happened to Wraith. To Rafe. Ew. And then lastly, the last relationship I really want to speak on that I think isn't developed as much in the foreground. I'm more so developed in the background, but I think it's the most impactful part of this book. Nethair and Veritas, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact of Nethair coming to terms with who he is, grappling to tell Veritas while also justifying his actions, and when Veritas does find out, having to see that relationship fall apart finally, um, and where that leads both characters, Veritas, saving prisoners and actively trying to kill Calidus, Nethair storming Drasil, which I didn't realize it was a play on Yggdrasil until this book, but whatever. Um, I think that relationship is probably one of the strongest things of this book, even though it's not in your face the entire time. I loved it. So yeah, to wrap this up, Gwen's writing style is great. The book overall is great. I would highly recommend it. It's my favorite book in The Faithful and the Fallen so far. I had so much fun with it. Going into the 40% mark of this book, I had so much fun with it. If you can get through that first bit of the book, which honestly, if I go back and read now, probably isn't as slow as I remember. But if you get through that first part of the book, you will love the rest of this book. It's great. And so yeah, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. See ya. Bye.